I can't. I don't know what to say. What if I offend somebody? There's all these new vocabulary words. How am I supposed to stay on top of stuff? I'm just going to avoid this. I can't do it. I don't want to do it, let's be honest. I just don't feel good enough. That is literally why I wrote my book called Good Enough Now. What I've been doing is diversity and inclusion trainings for the last 15 years. And about 3 years ago, I started getting burnt out. And by burnt out, I mean like crispy burnt out. Like the crouton that's actually the heel of old bread to begin with. I wanted to get a job, and I realized that speaking and folding fitted sheets are really the only skill sets I had. What am I supposed to do? I kind of really decided I either have to quit or I have to figure it out. And part of figuring it out was deciding that what I feel like I do isn't just talk in front of groups of people. They may look like that. But what I do is I help people have conversations that matter. And the conversations that matter may be like, dude, fix your face, you have spinach in your teeth. Sometimes that's an easy conversation. It's your best friend, right? Like, you don't even have to use words, you're just like, right? But you change the person or the topic or the setting, and all of a sudden, you know it's a conversation that matters, but you don't know how to do it. And what most of us end up doing is either referring it out to someone else or talking with someone else about the conversation that mattered that you didn't have. I don't want to do that anymore, personally. So I want to take this opportunity to share with you ways that I think is not just about making conversation, and it's not just about like recruiting new people, and it's not just about like getting along with group members or team members or your family or that person on Facebook. You all know that person on Facebook. It's not just about having a conversation. It's about having a connection, a better connection with someone else. Now, as a recovering diversity and inclusion training person that was doing everything as if it was external to me, using vocabulary lists and flip charts and things, what I eventually realized is that the only tool that I actually can do anything with is me, which is, for the record, completely depressing. Because I am a disastrous hot mess, with like oozing hot mess flowing over the edges. But in theory, if I could have a conversation that mattered with myself, some of the time, maybe I could cure my own burnout. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. So I want to kind of go through this. I want you first, pick somebody, pick a topic, pick a person that you're like, nope, I am not on duty for this one. Someone else is going to do this. Pick a time where you knew you should have said something, but you didn't because you didn't know how or you didn't feel good enough to do it. Pick that moment. Now, for some of us, it's like when we break up with people or we fire people or something, or worse, is you've been broken up with or you've been fired, and then we have what I call the second conversation, where you say everything you want to say, you sound amazing, you do exactly what you wanted to do. That's fine. But in those moments, could you have made a better connection with that person? Going forward, here's the steps. I deeply believe that the way to have conversations that matter is to do the best you can with what you currently have some of the time. Not 100% of the time. It's really annoying. You really annoy people and you end up not having any friends. It's all about relationships. So some of the time. With the tools that you have right now, you don't need an extra certification or a degree or the right collection of friends or have like binge watch Netflix diversity channel for hours. Just what you have right now. And do your best. And for me, that's about intention. So if you decide right now, I am going to make a better connection. I am going to have an intentional conversation. Right now, in this moment, I'm going to be intentional and I'm going to lean into this conversation, not already knowing what's going to happen and not knowing everything. An intentional conversation is engaging with someone with the knowledge that you might not know everything, with the opportunity to learn something. Even that person on Facebook that you're like, what if they have something to teach you? What would happen is that we would listen differently. If we can have intentional conversations where we listen to others as if they're wise, that means that we're open to learning something from them. These could be brand new folks. These could be first-year college students. This could be your little siblings. This could be random people at the grocery store that you literally have only met because you're both trying to pick a good cantaloupe. If you listen to others as if they're wise, you're curious, you're generous, and you're available for a better connection. Now, I realized this when I was actually walking in the woods with my friend's 8-year-old. Niels is his name. So we started walking in the woods of Vermont. We're going around and starting to get dusk, and let's be honest, the bugs are coming out, so I'm like, gotta go, enough outdoor time for me, and I'm ready to go home. And he's been showing me bugs and plants and having the greatest time ever in his backyard. We've been gone for about 45 minutes. Sun is setting. I start freaking out because this city girl is like, I'm gonna get lost in the middle of the woods of Vermont, and then when they find my decomposing body, I'm gonna be like, an 8-year-old led me here, right? So I'm like, Niels, like we should probably head back to the house. And he's like, oh, okay. And he keeps walking and is pointing out things. And I'm like, no, really, like, we should go back to the house. I say this a couple of times until it triggers like my digestive system, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to go back to the house because I'm super anxious and I don't know what's going on, I don't know where we are, I've never been here before, and I'm literally picturing my decomposing body in the forest in Vermont. And there's winter eventually, I have to get out of this forest. So he realizes I'm panicking, shrugs his shoulders, turns right, and bisects a circle that we have been making. We are literally 100 feet away from the house. I didn't know that. We get to the house, I go to the bathroom, I come out, and he has a glass of water for me, and he's like, are you okay? I was like, yes. I'm a little embarrassed, but yes, thank you. And he goes, you know what's so weird? Adults never wonder. They just wonder. And in that moment, an 8-year-old told me basically, chill out. I've lived here my whole life. I've done this walk every single day. I know that forest like the back of my hand. You just don't trust me. And he was right. I wasn't listening to him as if he was wise. I wasn't even trying really to have a connection with him. I thought I was doing my friend a favor by babysitting briefly. But instead, I missed a huge opportunity for a real connection. What would happen if you could listen to people as if they're wise, and I even mean 8-year-olds? So now if you've decided, you're committed, you're gonna do this, you are going to have a connection, you are going to be better at this, you are going to do a conversation that matters. Once you have set that intention, you've already entered the conversation space differently. Now it's slightly less important for you to use exactly the right words or exactly the right phrasing. Same thing goes if you speak a second or third or fourth language. If you don't conjugate a verb right, they're so impressed typically that you're trying that they'll follow along because the intention is there. So the next thing is to intentionally form a message. What do you want to say? This is when we replay getting dumped. We do it later. But if you intentionally decide what you're going to say, what message you want to deliver to that person, slow your roll a little bit and think about what you're trying to say. And with the intention of having a better connection, go ahead, send your message out. Know that regardless of your intention, you're responsible for its impact. You're responsible for when it's an imaginary high five message received, it's congruent with the intention, all good. Most of the time we talk with our friends, that's how it works out. But you know when it's not. Sometimes you're gifted with feedback, and someone tells you that you hurt their feelings, or you've offended them, or you should use a different word, or you should say something differently. Sometimes you're gifted with that. But most of the time, I tell a lot of jokes. I'll tell a joke, and I know when it might have landed, but it didn't land the way I intended. I am responsible for that impact. So I invite me, to claim or reclaim for some of us, because sometimes it's a repetitive pattern, sticking your foot in your mouth and saying the wrong things, reclaim responsibility for an impact you didn't intend. When you do that, it is then when you can pay attention to how did this moment actually impact your connection with that human being. Now, it doesn't have to be like a set week where you're like hiring new people or recruiting new members or like your balloon arches are abound. This is the week I'm supposed to have intentional conversations. I mean like always. These are available all the time. When I pass through an airport, I always think about the baristas at Starbucks. I used to be a barista at a coffee shop and I had regulars. And I wonder about the baristas in airports. Do they have regulars? Do they have people that they can talk with and feel like a human being when they're at an airport and it's just a passerby who may never go through that airport again? So typically, it's baristas that I have some intention. I want to be responsible and I want to have an impact and I want them to make eye contact with me and I want to make eye contact with them and I want them to know that I'm really glad that they fought traffic and TSA to get through the airport, to get to this Starbucks, to make my venti soy chai with a pump of hazelnut. Thank you very much. I see them as a person. Now, they're not entitled to this connection. I'm not entitled to this connection either. So they may be like, whatever, soy chai, move along. I got other people in line. But every once in a while, somebody actually looks back at me. And it's the first time in maybe their shift that someone actually looked at them, noticed them, engaged with them, and said, "Hi, human, how are you? I am also a human. Welcome." It's the most amazing thing when my intention and the impact is congruent and we can have a better connection. And that matters. It doesn't have to be a conversation about a topic that we think matters. Conversations that matter are about my humanness and your humanness for a brief second, mattering to the other person. It involves curiosity. It involves generosity. It also involves a degree of vulnerability. And we like to say this word of authenticity, but what I really mean is just be a regular person. When you claim responsibility for when you have or have not been able to make a connection, notice the impact that it has on that relationship in that moment. Learn from it. How can you do good next time? How can you do better next time? Again, doing the best you can with what you have some of the time is literally how to be good enough. Now, I know in the business world, in capitalism, and we can go to colonialism even if you want, we have this habitual story that we have to excel and be exceptional all the time. I don't use PowerPoint, but this is when I should have eagles flying behind me, right? Because we have to be number one, we have to be exceptional, we have to compete with everyone else. What I think is so amazing is that it's easier to convince ourselves that we are competing with everyone else because we are actually too weak to compete with ourselves. What would happen if you were able to have a better connection even with the people who are closest to you right now? I've been married for 14 years, and I still learn new things about my partner. My partner's Gmail address ends with 505. And honestly, I figured it was like a Levi's shout out or something like that. And about a month ago, I was in New Mexico speaking at this big conference thing. And my partner's like, "Oh, New Mexico, I've always wanted to live there. That's why it's 505. What? I didn't know that. You want to live in New Mexico? So much that that's what you picked your Gmail and Yahoo back in the day address ends in 505. I didn't know that. If we're busy trying to be exceptional, we're going to miss the moment to actually learn something about the person we're trying to connect with. The idea isn't to settle or be content. The idea is to work with what you've got. If you decide this person in class, this person next to me in the grocery store, this person in line at the movies, this is someone I'm going to remind them that they're actually a human and I see them. If you make that decision, you may or may not be successful, but you're intentionally engaging with the world in a way that allows you to learn, in a way that allows you to listen, and allows you to have conversations that matter. Now, I told you as a diversity and inclusion person, I got burnt out. And oh, did I. But mostly because what I was doing was, as a perfectionist, I was trying to gather the right words. I was trying to gather the right certificates. If I'm going to be really honest, I was trying to gather the right assortment of friends so that I could feel above other people. I could judge them. They're so much worse than me. Doing that distanced me from people to build relationships, but it also distanced me from my own sense of responsibility. That's how I got burnt out. I still make mistakes. I still have a ton to learn. But I'm available. I'm willing to be more vulnerable. And I'm willing to be authentic or real. And in doing that, I have actually formed real and better connections and relationships with other people. It's not about eagles soaring. It's not about being perfect. And it's not about squelching your competition and standing on them so you can feel tall. The idea of real diversity and inclusion work starts here, with self-responsibility, self-awareness of who and how you are, and making conscious choices of which kind of better connections you want to make. If we do the best we can with what we have some of the time, we will be good enough. We will survive all of the things everybody says about us, which is why we should quit, why we should fold, and why we're not good enough. I have learned, striving to occasionally do the best I can with what I have some of the time, has not only cured my burnout, but it's made me more excited about the possibility of what I can learn and what I can share with others. That's what being good enough now actually feels like. Thank you.